Today I'd love to talk about Clivias. They're such a beautiful flower. Look at this, it's coming to the end of its season, but I thought let's talk about it because it's such an interesting plant, originally from South Africa and has gone all over the world. My name is Alice and I'm the red soil gardener. The Clivias is originally, they come from South Africa, Southern Africa, and the thing is that they are forest plants, and so they grow underneath forest trees and also sometimes in between the branches. Now the thing about the Clivia is in South Africa they even have societies, Clivia societies, because the plant is indigenous and they do feel so proud about this plant. These societies, they actually auction hybrid Clivias and basically you can pay a lot of money. Now the type of Clivia we have here in Kenya is the orange one. Now this orange one has been blooming since maybe last November and it's just coming to the end of the season because as the Clivia gets into the cold season it does want dormancy. That means it likes to sort of retreat and regroup itself. It doesn't need that much water during the cold season, and after the cold season, the spring finishes, again you'll see the first buds and then it'll start flowering from November right up to April. The other thing about Clivias is that they love to grow in clumps. So you do get, like with this particular one, I have three major, it was actually initially just one plant, but I have already three major ones and a little baby coming up, and they do get very happy when they're in clumps. Now the thing is that when, for example with this plant, it gets a bit too congested, you have to repot it, and once you repot it, what happens is the Clivia actually gets really disturbed when you do have to repot it, because basically what you do is you interrupt the blooming cycle of the plant. But once you do repot it, give it a year and then you'll start getting your flowers. So as we mentioned is that you will get blooms. Now these are the blooms, and basically is that you can get up to 12 or 14 these trumpet-like flowers, so you get this cluster. Now first thing is that as it gets to maturity, these flowers will drop off, and then what you will get is this sort of look where the flowers have dropped off and the plant goes into seed production. So once it goes into seed production is that you have a choice here to either cut the stem and not let your plant go into seed production, or if you want to get seeds, let it grow. All these little nodules will turn into little clumps of seeds, and once you leave that, then you get this sort of look. Now this is the Clivia seed, and it's gradually will change color, and eventually you will get this lovely sort of plum color. But I have actually taken this before it gets all nice and soft and plummy. But what you do is when you want to go into to utilize, yeah, this is ready, is you just open the pulp and the seed is in there, and let's see if we can get in there. Here you go. Here we go. So this here is the seed that you get from your Clivia. And look at that lovely, it almost looks like a pearl. And that is what you're going to use for your seed production and germinate it. It may take about 2 months to get the first germination coming out, but eventually you will get your Clivia, your baby Clivia. But it is a slow process, and to get a full plant you may have to maybe 1.5 to 2 years, but you could try that technique. The other technique, what you have is you can either go into division, which I've done with a major plant, and I got a lot of babies, but the other thing is through tubers, because as the Clivia grows, you get babies forming on the side, and these are the ones you have to take out, and you can grow those. Once your plant now goes into seed production, which we've shown you here, is that with a Clivia plant, it likes a period of dormancy, which means it just shuts down, it sleeps, it regenerates itself, it just doesn't do anything, but then waits for the next season, and it needs a cold temperature. So for a lot of people is that during winter in Europe is put your Clivia maybe in the basement and leave it there. You don't have to water it because it's in its dormant stage. It needs this in order for it to start blooming in spring. And we have the same thing here in Africa as we're going through our cold season, and the Clivia flower will no longer be flowering. It sits and waits, and then by November it starts again. Again, the blooms do start, but it just means that it's had its dormant season, and the dormant season is very important for its blooming cycle. The reason why I decided to do the Clivia is actually quite interesting. It was just a surprise. I was touring around my garden, and I did have a big pot full of Clivias, and it had been there for almost about 6 years. And at that point I thought to myself, we know the Clivias love to be in clumps, they love to sit. I mean, they just occupy the whole pot, and that is what makes them feel comfortable. But when I looked deeper into it, because we've got the rainy season, we have slugs everywhere, and it is quite, and they do like the leaves of the Clivia. But then I decided is that why don't I just repot my Clivias, or even just include them in the garden, which I did. Now, on closer looking at the Clivia, I realized I have a big problem, and the problem is the Amaryllis caterpillar. These are leaves from this place. I noticed this is what is happening. It starts off like this, and you do get brown marks like that. And I was like, I wonder what's happening here. But on close looking, you suddenly realize you have a caterpillar attack. What it does is that as a butterfly, it's a moth, it comes and lays its eggs on the leaves, and as the eggs mature, they burrow themselves in the leaves, and as they burrow themselves in the leaves, they start eating all the fleshy bit of the leaf. If you look here, there's one. And what it's done, it's got inside the leaf, and I've got all these other little eggs. I'm sure they're going to soon hatch. And here we have the caterpillar. Once it lays its eggs, it can actually destroy your whole plant. Luckily, I was able to save some of my plants, which I've planted in the garden. But when I look at this, is that I can see the eggs very clearly. And then the worst thing about them is that once they go into the crown and eat, and sort of they live there, they have their eggs, they go into the crown, you've lost your babies. So what you have to do is you either have to just get rid of it, or I will show you what to do. So you've seen what these caterpillars can do to your plant. I mean, they can totally ruin it. And so the only thing I did is, first of all, when you do get that sort of infestation, is that if the caterpillars have been laid inside the crown, I would actually just get rid of that plant. Because also the thing is that, you know, you could be spreading these eggs everywhere onto your other plant. But however, if it does start at the tip, and if you examine it and examine the plant and make sure that there's no eggs, because they do lay them at the back, and if there's any eggs, I would just forget it. But if the eggs were laid at the back, let's say somewhere here, and the rest of the leaf is good, I would just crop it, get rid of that infestation, and stay with the leaf. Now the other thing is that there are pesticides for this, for the caterpillars. So what I've done is I looked at the soil and the plant and whatever, because some of the larvae could be in the soil. So what I did is I just got my pesticide for caterpillars and put it in the soil. In that way the larva dies. And then what you do is go and get a spray for the caterpillars and just spray the area around, because not only do they eat your beautiful Clivia, they also eat other sort of succulents where they can burrow themselves in, or fleshy leaves where they can burrow themselves in. So I would actually just make sure you spray all around there, so in that way you give them no chance to come and destroy your plant. Here is where I planted my rescued Clivia, and I'm so sure they're going to do well. Although it's a cold season at the moment in Nairobi, and they will go through their dormancy period, but once the summer starts coming up in August, as they'll start picking up, and by September, October, I'm so sure I'll get the flowers. So thank you so much for joining me in this episode. I hope you've learned something, and don't let those caterpillars put you off. We do love caterpillars, it's only when they start eating our favorite plants. But don't forget to like, share, and also subscribe to my channel and invite your friends. I think this channel is going to get more and more exciting, and don't forget to press that notification button so you can be always informed every time we upload a new episode. Thank you so much, and look after your Clivias.